in Sanatana Dharma, Bhagwan or God is beyond gender. So, and we have the concept of Ardhanari Ishvara, which basically means, again, there is a feminine aspect and there is a masculine aspect. Without Shakti, Shiva cannot move. He is not dynamic. The dynamism or the active energy here is Shakti. So they complete each other. They complement each other. And when the coming together of these masculine and feminine energies happen, only then creation happens. Only then movement happens. In Western philosophy or in Western framework, they think to be equal is to be similar. Whereas in our context, in the dharmic framework, you can be equal without being similar. So I don't have to dress like a man. I do not have to behave like a man. And I don't necessarily have to speak like a man to be powerful. I am powerful in myself.
This session is about celebrating the spirit of women who are as unshakable as mountains or even more. So, for starters, ma'am, how does it feel to be a published author, and for how long was this idea brewing inside you?
Thank you to Kashmir Literature Festival for showcasing my book, Honorable Goddesses. It's almost surreal to be here in Kashmir and to talk about all our mountain goddesses, from this region, because my book is the context of my book, or the lens through which I look at dharmic femininity, is based on these extraordinary stories, folklores, and folk traditions associated with women, with Devi from this region. So it's something which is absolutely fantastic that I'm sitting here and speaking about them. So you asked me how it feels to be a published author. I think more than an author, I see myself as a storyteller. What General Pandey was saying, that you need to tell your story, and that's what I always felt, because I came from a region which is Jammu. I'm a Dogra from Jammu. I felt that my region was very less talked about. It was less heard. People didn't know much about it. So there was this full, point of concern for me. It was a personal issue also, where identity was a very important thing. So I had been thinking that someone needs to tell those stories from my region, because, and earlier there was a very long time when I was much younger, where I was always asked like, "कि कोई कहानी सुना क्यों नहीं रहा? यहाँ की कोई बात क्यों नहीं कर रहा?" And then I realized that it is me who's going to have to tell the story. The people themselves of that place, of the story that they want to tell you, they need to tell those stories. So that's when I decided that I will write. I put down my thoughts and I tell these stories, and that's where it came from. So I'm very happy that the story has been told. So more than a published author, I feel very happy that the story has been told. And as far as the idea goes, so since this was very clear in my head that I have to tell the story of this particular region and of these people, then I was actually flashing out ideas as to what should I write about, because the range was wide. Because see, it's a blank. It's like a blank canvas. Nobody has told the story of Jammu region, so kis par likha jaye? And it gave, somehow it was like I have to talk about the goddesses, because she has always been with me. So whenever I'm in any situation, good, bad, in a situation where I'm feeling vulnerable, where I'm feeling unsafe, when I'm very happy, she has always been with me. So as a very young child, because of course Shakti Upasana or Shakti tradition is very strong in this, in Jammu and Kashmir. So always I called out to Ma Durga. And in fact, I called out to Ma and Baba, in the sense that I always called out to Shivji and Durga. So I thought, let me talk about my mother. So that's how Mountain Goddesses came about. And the second point, how this idea emerged was, as I said, identity, because I was exploring where I'm from, because I've always had to explain who I am. Those who were here yesterday probably heard me say that, since a young child, I've had to explain what Khajuria, it's a very peculiar Dogra last name. So that is an advantage because I'm married into a Singh family now. But I kept Khajuria because not because of any Western feminist ideas, but because I wanted to identify my people wherever I went. And I said, okay, Khajuria rakhogi, so my people will be able to identify me. That was my reason of keeping the Khajuria. And the book, of course, it says Manu Khajuria Singh. Singh is the family I married into. So I've always had to explain, कौन हूँ मैं? So either people think because of our, the way we look कि Punjabi हैं, Jammu Kashmir बोलो तो they think that you are from Kashmir, and I wanted to tell no, I'm from the Dogra community. So that identity plus an identity as a woman, because if you look at the Dogras, if you talk about the Jammu region, I don't know how many of you know how much about the region, but the first thing that will come to your mind across the conversations I've had, be it in India or abroad, when you say the word Dogra, martial tradition is associated. It's striking. It stands out. And if people don't know anything, they at least know about the martial traditions. So then came my identity as a woman, like gender identity. Ki in this whole canvas, in this whole fabric of such a tall martial legacy of my people, we've had these fantastic warriors. We almost worship our warriors. We owed Tadaks, Tadke, that these are ballads about our warriors. We are always taught from them what were the women doing. So we have a lot of folk songs where women are pining for their husbands who are in the battlefront. And they're waiting for their men to return and come back home. So these women were managing the fields, they were managing their households, their families, while their men were fighting battles. So one picture that clearly emerged was that we were in constant battle because of our geographical location, of course. We were in conflict. And then I was like, okay, so what was the Dogra woman doing? So how do I identify and how do I locate these feminine icons? Because I need to find out identifiable feminine icons for myself. I don't know how many of you read the Amar Chitra Katha while growing up. So when I used to read these comic books, I was looking for heroes or heroines who looked like me. And because I came from a region like Jammu, I didn't find any. And you want to identify with your hero or heroine. You want to identify with your gods and goddesses also. So I'll quickly tell one interesting point. We have the Adhishthatri Devi of Jammu city, who is the Mahakali, and she's inside her abode is this Babu fort, which is on a hillock in Jammu city. So if you see the way her shringar is done, any Dogra woman can immediately identify with her because she's wearing the Dogri Nath. She is wearing a Nama set, which is a gold leaf jewelry. She's wearing Dogri Jhumke. So when you go to her, you feel like, ha, ye meri maa hai. So actually the Sanatan Dharma is left right. Our Devi and Devtas are very identifiable for us. So I was looking for these feminine icons, and that's where this idea came about. And I started researching, what were our women doing? Where were they placed? How were they included in the power structures? What were they saying, if saying something at all? And hence the idea emerged, and hence the book is divided into 3 sections. So the first section is looking into a few Shakti sthalas of our region. So I've talked about Bawe Wali Mata, Mahakali, the presiding deity of Jammu city. I've talked about Vaishno Mata, which everybody is familiar with, Sarthal Mata, Suktala Mata. So I've looked into their folklores and examined what those stories meant for us and how they look at women. Then the second section of the book is on Kuladevis or Tatis. Again, a very peculiar feature of the spiritual landscape of Jammu region. And I do believe it's not very peculiar because there is a concept of Gram Devi elsewhere in Bharat also. And these clan deities, these village deities, what are their stories? Because these were our ordinary women who have been deified, who have been made into deities because of their extraordinary circumstances or something that they've done which has been very amazing, or things that have been done to them and they've been deified. And the last section of my book looks into warrior princesses or queens or kingmakers, the women who played a role in administration or governance, and some who actually went into battle, leaving the men from right to the front. So these are the three sections of the book, and that's how the book came about.
Thank you so much, Ram, for letting us know about the book. I would also want to know about the title. The title of the book, which is Finding, it's Mountain Goddesses, but then it's Finding Feminine Power from an Unexpected Place. And I find this title layered. So I want to know from you that when you talk about finding feminine power, is it any goddess or is it the feminine power within you?
Very good question, Naira. So, the title Mountain Goddesses is self-explanatory because I was focused on this region, the Jammu region. And Jammu region, when we say, I need to put this out here because a lot of people, when they hear Jammu, they think Jammu city, but it's not just Jammu city. Jammu city is there, then there is a Jammu district, and Jammu region has 10 districts. So, I've looked at our Devis across these 10 districts. So, I have mentioned, I've talked about the Devi in Rajouri district. I've looked at a Devi in Jammu district, in Kathua district, somebody who's in Pudhampur, a Shakti Sthal which is in Pudhampur, etc. So I've looked at these 10 districts. And the second line, finding the feminine power in unexpected places, because when I was writing this book, I was writing this book in London. So I'm an Indian national who's been living abroad for almost more than a decade now. I've lived in the US and lived in the UK. And this in particular was both for an Indian audience who understands the dharmic framework, but also for an international audience. Because when they hear these stories, they read the book, see stories, which talk about certain things which might seem very fantastical to an international audience and to a very young audience in Bharat also, for that matter. So I had examined the folklores from my perspective. So this is my perspective, that this is the lesson behind it. This is how empowered the woman was, or this is the very powerful position she has been given, and hence unexpected places. Because when I went about researching, especially the clan deities and Gram Devis, the stories that I looked for, or I was asking people, because every clan has a different deity in Jammu region. So I have mine in the village, and then somebody else might have somewhere, they might have some other deity. So when I was asking for these stories and my research, actually I used social media a lot for my research, because I converse a lot with the youth in Jammu, people in Jammu, via my Twitter platform or my Instagram. So I've used that medium. So a lot of young people came to me and said that, we have a Dati. Dati is the clan deity, but we do not know the story, or we vaguely know the story. So that was also, made me feel this is urgent. We really need to document these stories, because these are orally passed on. These are oral traditions. The entire Jammu region, you will have a problem of finding textual references. You will have to look at, simultaneously read other sources, like you'll have to look at art, you will have to look at music, you'll have to look at poetry, songs, everything. You'll have to look at all of that to understand what the position of the woman was, or what these stories were. So a lot of young people told me, हमको कहानी नहीं मालूम है, हमारे पेरेंट्स यहाँ जाते हैं, हमारी मेल लगती है. Mail is like a community gathering. So we meet annually, but we don't remember these stories, or they would vaguely remember these stories. So then I realized that the young people do not remember these stories, or think that this is not important, because they have not understood these stories. They do not know what these stories are saying. For them, it's like, पेरेंट्स ने बोला है या ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स ने बोला है तो मुझे यहाँ जाना है. बट उस स्टोरी के पीछे देर इज सम लेसन फॉर द सोसाइटी. देर इज अ सम ऑफ द दादीज और these Devi stories, it's about love, it's about compassion, it is about looking after our environment, as in do not, don't cut trees, do not harm animals. Some will have a lesson which is saying, come together as a community. So these datis, whenever they have these annual meals, these clan deities, what happens is that that clan, they might have spread all across the world, but they come together. So she's almost like a mother who's bringing them together. So this is the power of that deity. We recently had terrible devastation in Jammu region in August because of the floods. And then everybody started talking about, Arey, this is what Sukrala Mata's story says, that she's saying, don't touch my forests. She's saying, do not, take care of my rivers. So then I was like, this is exactly what is there in my book, that these stories of the folklores, which seem fantastical or mythical, and I don't like the word mythology or mythical, basically are codes which need to be cracked. So when you crack that code, the message is this: that take care of your environment, take care of your people, be compassionate, and even fight, actually. So this is all power, feminine power. And why, when you say that, is it about these goddesses or is it about me, you, or any of the women sitting here? So it's about us also. Because in Sanatan Dharma, the beauty is that the line between humanity and divinity is porous. The aspiration for us is to be divine like. We have to work on those qualities, and hence we say ki nar narayan ho sakta hai. So if I really, so that Devi in you, me, or all the women here, or in fact even the men, the Devi inside of us is inside all of us, and it's a latent energy. We have to, it's dormant. We have to activate it. So once it's activated, and we work on those qualities that the Devi is, and she has embodied, and she's telling ki even Vakkal, articulation is a feminine characteristic. Getting people together is a feminine trait. So any good leader, and that's why maybe you'll see leaders, they also do Shakti Pujan, because if they have to speak well, if they have to convince others, if they have to get people together, and a leader must also be compassionate. These are all feminine characteristics. And the beauty of Sanatan Dharma is that it says that you have a feminine aspect and you have a masculine aspect. And when these two come together, only then it becomes a whole. So it's also about that Durga in each one of us. So there is a Durga in each one of us, and hence you'll find that feminine power in unexpected places in these stories and within ourselves as well.
It's moving. So, well, as we spoke about the aspects of woman, there's this quote that I read. I may go wrong, Guru Natha, please correct me if I do. So, I read this because I have been a student of Hindi. And when I was reading about the attributes of women, it says, Tarmeshu Dasi, Karneshu Mantri, Bhojeshu Mata, Shaileshu Rampa, Rupeshu Lakshmi, Shamyeshu Dharti. So these are all the attributes of woman. And Mrs. Razdan, my question to you will be that how true do you think this is to present to present the understanding of the role of women in our society?
The women play a very, very important role in society. Understand, when the child is born, it's the woman who is raising this child. Everyone has heard that it takes a village to take care of the child. And the sanskars that we give to the children, they matter a lot. When we are younger, we don't realize that what we see do that, what you see in your household. I give you a very simple example. I come from a very orthodox Kashmiri household. I did not live in Srinagar. Though my parents were at Zenakadal, they moved to Pune, where my father was a builder, and he did a lot of work with the defense. So I have been, sort of know a lot about the defense because he only worked with the defense. In fact, he built one of the first runways in Pune. So what we saw as growing up was our parents. Our language played a very important role. We were not allowed to speak anything else but in Kashmiri. We kept our foods, we kept our tradition. I do wear the dejhor, which I told my mother before I got married, I'm not going to wear it, I'm a modern woman. And my father came and explained to me, he says, you cannot upset your mother. You have to wear this because this is important. It's a part of our tradition. So mother used to go to the temple all the time. Constantly you saw her run to the temple. Anything happened in the family, she would go to the temple. And we did have a temple at home where all of us were required to go in the morning and in the evening for our prayers. We did joint prayers together. I come from a joint family. So I think that made that played a very important role in my mind, because growing up I knew what it was to take care of an elder and what it was to have a young child in the home. So these little things, mother fasted. She used to have 4 fasts every week. We never understood what she did, but that was okay. Ashtami was a big thing because as a Kashmiri, Ashtami is always, Chauth was a big deal. And so, these are little things that we saw mother do. And I pretended, I went to the convent, I pretended I was very modern, I was not going to do any of these. And lo and behold, I got married, and this is how I raised my children. My son, he does one havan every year in the house. His wife is Swedish, but in spite of that, when she sits for the havan, she wears a lehenga, she covers her hair, and she sits there at the havan. And so this tradition is carried to my grandchildren. In fact, when my grandson was little and my granddaughter, I do a Monday fast, and for Shiva, and he would look at me and he would say, "Grandma is bathed in Shiva. Grandma, can we go and bathe Shiva?" He wanted to do it every day. So I said, "Okay, we will go." And when he did pranam, he lay flat on the ground and he did pranam to Shivji. So these are little things that make a lot of difference in the household. And one of the very important things I feel which play an important role is the parents. Dad told us, he says, "You are girls, you are better than the boys." He gave us that self-confidence to go out and talk in public. And I always had this impression I did everything the best. And I have 2 brothers, they are builders, and I tell them, "Well, this is how it has to be." So they tell me, "We know you were trained by Dad, but that doesn't mean anything." I said, "Well, he gave me the confidence. We have to encourage the girls that they are just as good, because in India, things are changing. I'm not arguing about it, but you have to give your girls, you have to give them the importance that they feel that they can do just as much or more than what their boys can do." And this is how a woman plays a very important role.
Commendable. Ma'am, since we're talking about women, we're celebrating the spirit of women. I want you to understand from you what is your understanding of Shiv and Shakti. What do you think is the significance of Shiv Shakti?
I mean, no better place to talk about Shiva and Shakti than Jammu and Kashmir. So this is the land of Shiva and Shakti. As I mentioned earlier, in Sanatana Dharma, Bhagwan or God is beyond gender. So, and we have the concept of Ardhanari Ishvara, which basically means, again, there is a feminine aspect and there is a masculine aspect. So one is a manifested energy, or rather, I would say that without Shakti, Shiva cannot move. He is not dynamic. The dynamism or the active energy here is Shakti. So they complete each other. They complement each other. And when the coming together of these masculine and feminine energies happen, only then creation happens. Only then movement. So this is a very important lesson for us also. Even if you are not a follower of, say, Sanatana Dharma, or you are not part of these dharmic traditions, this in itself is a very deep lesson that you're equal. And as I was saying yesterday, you do not have to be similar, because similar we sometimes get confused. In Western philosophy or in Western framework, they think to be equal is to be similar. Whereas in our context, in the dharmic framework, you can be equal without being similar. So I don't have to dress like a man. I do not have to behave like a man. And I don't necessarily have to speak like a man to be powerful. I am powerful in myself. And the beauty of the fact that because these are equal and they are complementary, it also doesn't mean that I am better than the man or the man is better. There is no such thing. There is equality. And the coming together is critical for anything to happen. So that is what Shiva and Shakti is, to put simply. And being here in Jammu and Kashmir, it's land of both Shiva and Shakti. We have the Baba Amarnath, and we have Vaishno Mam also. I mean, such is the power that it draws so many people from across Bharat, from the world, come to take their blessings. So this is a very, very important concept, and I am again spoken about this in my book, that what is this Shiva and Shakti principle? But this is what it is. It's complementary, it's equal, and without the coming together of these two forces, nothing moves.
It's profound at the same time. And while I conclude this session, a quote comes to my mind. It says, "Don't walk ahead of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk with me and let's live together forever." And with this, I would like to conclude our session. Thank you so much for having us, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.